start by stating your name and where you're from, and a little bit about your first-hand experience the first few days of the spill.
Okay. My name is Jason Thompson, and I do live here in Mayflower. And I've lived here for about 9 months, and lived here before, but I do live here now. And I moved back here because of the lake, because of the fishing, the people, and when this oil spill happened, my girlfriend works at one of the local businesses here. It's Tampico. It's a Mexican restaurant here in town. And the oil rupture happened right behind their building where their restaurant is at. And the day it happened, she called me at home and she said, there's been a gas leak or something because the smell, there's cops everywhere. And Mayflower is a small town. We have 4 cops. And this particular day, there were probably 25 cops. There were sheriff's deputies, there were state troopers. You might see 1 or 2 game and fish, officers, but it was mostly law enforcement. I got in the car and drove up there to the parking lot to see for myself, and that's when it was made clear that it was an oil spill. That one of their pipes had ruptured, and they were all claiming that it was a crude oil. It's your typical oil, nothing to worry about. They'd have it cleaned up in no time, and they lied to us. When the truth came out, it's thousands and thousands of barrels of this sand oil, or tar sand, excuse me, and it's not your typical motor oil, and the smell the first day was just so god-awful. It burned your eyes. You could almost see, looking across the parking lot there at Harps, which was where the spill happened, right behind their building. You could see it almost in the air. It looked like not a fog, more of a haze, and we were concerned about breathing it, about our skin being exposed to it. We didn't know what it was, and it's been a little over a week now, and they're still not clear on what it is, and so my concern for my girlfriend was being at work, having to smell that stuff, and then as the days progressed, the smell started to not be as strong. You could still smell it, but what we were experiencing was just the stuff on the ground. The cleanup crews got here after it happened. I want to say within 3 hours. There were a cleanup crew. The Exxon was here immediately. The pump trucks that were pumping it out of the lake, off the top of the water. Now this tar sand, of course, it's a heavier, type of crude oil. It's not refined. It's some of the dirtiest, nastiest, most pollutant oil, there is, and it ruptured right here in our neighborhood. And just the smell and just the sight of Exxon being here, and all the emergency management, whatever they're called, EPA was here. It all happened so fast, and they covered it up so fast to not explain what it really was, that nobody really seemed to care, and then as the days progressed and people were starting to kind of feel the side effects, of the dehydration, it burning in your lungs, from breathing this chemical, seeing, these employees, the cleanup crew, even the Exxon employees who were out tromping off of this stuff to see how far the spill went, and then what are they doing? They're walking into Dollar General, they're walking into the gas stations, and they're bringing this stuff in on their shoes. There was no wash stations whatsoever. I actually, for myself, watched some of the Exxon employees and some of the cleanup crew, and some of the guys that were with the pump crew walking off in this stuff, and then jumping in their truck and driving off, or walking from behind Subway where the main spill drained across, their property under the interstate to the pond, which feeds to the lake, which I think the worst spot is right there on the opposite side of the interstate from the actual spill itself. And it's contaminated that pond so bad that they didn't catch it in time. They didn't stop the flow of oil, and plus with it rained in the days prior, and so a lot of your drainage ditches where this oil ran to still had water in it, running water, and that water's got to go somewhere. Well, that water is designed by these ditches to go to that pond, which feeds to the lake. Okay, and so but the neighborhood where it happened behind Harps those homeowners now, they can't even go home yet, and they're in hotels. I spoke with one lady earlier today, and she said, all I wanted was to go home and get some clothes for my kids, and I couldn't even do that. She said, I was told that if I crossed this line, I'd be arrested, and they can't arrest you. That's your property, okay? If Exxon owns that property, they should pay your mortgage, especially now. Because, these homeowners are saying that, one guy I spoke today, he said that his property, he bought it for $9,000 an acre. Not to mention the house. So the house, you're looking at $150,000, $170,000 house. Well, what's that doing to his property and his house? With all this tar sand, oil in his backyard, in his front yard, in his street, And what we're wanting today is we want Exxon to step up and don't lie to us, Explain to us what this really is, are we in danger sitting here right now? We're probably 3 miles from the oil slick where we sit. And the creek you see behind me is Palm Creek. So anything that's drained into the lake, drained into the creek, is coming right behind me and flows right. So what's that going to do to our river? So
you mentioned on day 3 that you visited the dam. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Sure. It was probably around 10 o'clock at night. And usually about that time of the night, there's hardly anybody down there fishing. I went down. The gates on the dam were open. There's probably, I think, 14 or 15 gates under your walkway under the dam. When they open those gates, it's not flowing over the top of the gates. They raise the gates up, so it's all the water underneath is rushing. Now when the lake is up, it's over the gates, it'll spill over the top, so anything that's on the top layer of the water is being rushed off. But when they open the gates, it's all flowing, and so they had 5 gates open, and I can't explain or express the water pressure, the power, so with it being the 3rd night, it was about 10 o'clock at night, we were out there, and I cast it off with a little white spinnerbait, and I'm casting off the top of the dam onto the creek side, okay, into the current. So when I cast out, the water is carrying my bait downstream, but it's so rough, it's not sinking, it's on top of the water, So I would scoot over a little bit out of the current and reel my bait in, and the 2nd or 3rd cast, when I reeled in, I had about this much oil, up my fishing line, and I smelled it, when I first reeled it in, I smelled the smell. And I didn't know what it was, but you're on top of the dam where the gearboxes are for the dam gates. I thought maybe I brushed into one of those gearboxes that got grease on me, and it was just, it was a really potent smell. No, this was on my fishing line. It was on the spinnerbait, and when you smelled it, it's the exact same smell that you smelled day 1, in the Harps parking lot. And not only was it Harps, the parking lot you were smelling it in, it was pretty much all over Mayflower, And so it wasn't just the employees of the stores or the residents from that area. It was everybody,
So we know that 22 homes were evacuated, but as you're saying, this encompasses a much larger area that's infected or affected, I should say. We'll see if they get infected later. But a lot of the residents that weren't evacuated are experiencing the same symptoms that y'all did. Do you think the whole town should have been evacuated?
Yeah. Knowing now, what I know now, yeah, absolutely. It shouldn't have been just those homes. It should have been our stores. It should have been, the school especially, and they weren't. It was just the homeowners where the oil was either in their yard or in their neighborhood where they could possibly drive through it to get to their house, coming or going. And so they've got, our local police department is out there right now blocking these neighborhoods off, where the actual spill is at, where it's drained to under the interstate, on the opposite side of the interstate, into the pond, in people's backyards that's come up from the pond. You've got city officials that are out there now to kick you out of there, and the police will threaten you, they'll throw you in jail, they can make all the threats they want to, okay? I live here, Okay, and I'm not one to break the law. I worked in law enforcement, so I respect the law, but also respect my fellow residents here in Mayflower. Their lives are more important to me. So yeah, we're gonna do what we have to. And Exxon's not gonna tell us, so it's our duty to step up, and get our own samples, and go over Exxon's head, and make sure that 10 years from now, if I die from lung cancer, it's because of me smoking and not because of this tar sand, but they're so worried and interested in saving their own butt, saving their job, and making the citizens of Mayflower think, hey, it's just oil, it'll be cleaned up, and it's not, and we want our answers, we want the truth, and I don't want, say 3 years from now, to be fishing in the lake, where the spill leaked into the lake, which it's been proven. It's a fact. It's in our lake now, So what's to say I don't fish off my pier, which is in that cove, catch a fish, fry it up and eat it, and now I'm contaminated on the inside, more than what I was from just breathing it or coming in contact with the fumes in the air, They're not. We want answers, and they're not being truthful, And this stuff, we're slowly and gradually learning how dangerous this stuff really is, And a funny story: one of the ladies that works at a local store here, she said that her child goes to the elementary school here in Mayflower, and that some of the officials took an air tester inside and was explaining to the children and the teachers and some of the parents that were there how this machine worked. If it detected any kind of pollutancy in the air, it would sound an alarm. And one of the little girls said, well, Mom, as soon as they walked off, the machine sounded the same alarm that they described to us that we would hear if it, detected anything at all in the air that would hurt us, And she said, we weren't asked to go home. We were asked to go back to class and finish our work, If that was my child, I'm sorry. I would own that school. I would own Exxon, which, not to say it won't happen, because they keep lying, they keep covering up, people are going to get sick. I'm sick as we speak, and I do have slight allergies, and the pollen has just started to come out, but I'm talking the past 4 or 5 days. The pollen has just really hit hard the past 2 days, I'm just now starting to see a yellow, sheen on my car, but now, it's like the burning in the lungs, it's like, it's hard to breathe. I'm a smoker. When I get up in the mornings, I smoke a cigarette. This morning, I didn't smoke a cigarette for 4 or 5 hours. I couldn't. I tried, and it burned, until I got up and got breathing, got moving around, and kind of got, that stuff broke up in my lungs and could breathe again, But, we're experiencing, nausea, not me so bad as my girlfriend who works at one of the restaurants here in town, and she was right there when it happened. And she's been there every day from 10 in the morning till 9:30 at night, And so now she's experiencing vomiting, diarrhea, not so much as a fever, is just feeling bad, having almost like flu type symptoms without having the flu, And yes, the longer they're here cleaning it up, the less the smell. It's not so bad, but it's still there. This morning, I haven't smelled it the whole day. This morning it was so humid. The wind's blowing like I couldn't breathe. And the scent was definitely present. So.
You mentioned the symptoms that y'all are having, and some of them are flu-like. Exxon has stated that they are not going to accept claims of flu-like symptoms as part of people's testimony. I mean, how do y'all feel about that?
They will. And I won't sleep until they do, because they're not the ones that are sick. They have their biohazard suits. Their face masks that are filtering the air, so they're not breathing the same stuff we are. Now, granted, they're right on top of it. They're out there in the spill cleaning it up. We're on the outside of it, and our local law enforcement is making sure we're on the outside of it, and they're keeping us from getting our own samples, which we're getting them. They don't know that, but we've got them, We're going to prove it ourselves, but, I've already filed a claim with the claims office, and it was an Exxon claims rep that claims he does not work for Exxon, or he works with Exxon. He works for Exxon. They have hired him to handle all their claims, And when I called and told them that we were sick, we're feeling sick, and where we live right there on the cove. But the spill happened where the spill ended was probably about a mile from my house. But they've got their containers where they're storing this stuff in right across the street from my house. So not only were we, kind of in a safety zone, so to speak, for the time being, not anymore. They're dragging this stuff up the highway right in front of our house, and the containers, I can almost throw a rock from my front porch and get those containers. You can't see them, but at night you can see their spotlights where the little light is all lit up, and the tanker trucks are coming in all hours of the day and night, they're backing their trucks off into this stuff, filling their tankers up, and then dragging that stuff on their tires, and they're polluting our street. Like I said, they're walking into our stores with it on their boots. Now they have a wash station.
When did that go up? When did you notice
I saw
that?
it today. As a matter of fact,
this is 11
spill.
days later.
Yes.
From the rupture, and very fast response from the get-go. But what it seems is that maybe not really taking into consideration all the logistics of how this stuff can be tracked and contaminated elsewhere, and the fact that it is in the lake, and that we can only have to speculate what will happen. And a lot about this flow of the water, and how we know tar sand sinks, so that flow, if it's strong enough, can carry it. It's just a matter of how far it will get.
Right.
And you mentioned earlier about the Game and Fish Commission, which they have their training facility here. So what has their role been since this rupture happened, considering the wildlife?
Well, so far, all I've actually heard with my own 2 ears are threats. If you come across, any kind of wildlife, whether it be a critter like this, or a possum, a raccoon, a duck, a turtle, leave it alone. Contact, a hawk, which is, I understand, is the organization that's in charge of cleaning the animals and getting them back into the wild. And from what I understand, they're doing an excellent job. But as of today, it's been made public that Exxon has taken over hawk. So all the wildlife they had there that they were cleaning, they've taken from them, and they've taken over the cleaning process. It's because Exxon knows the truth about what this stuff really is and how to clean it off these animals, if they're actually cleaning it off these animals. We were told to leave the animals alone, don't try to rescue them. Well, I'm sorry. I'm a human being, I have a heart. And I've got pictures on my phone right now that I showed you guys that I'll be more than happy to give to you guys of us rescuing this duck. The duck was so saturated in oil. Now he's off in the lake, the part that's supposedly not contaminated, and he's diving under, trying to avoid us from getting him, but he's staying in that one little central area because that's his nesting. That's where he's made his little nest, he's laid his eggs, and he's like any mother, they're wanting to be there for their young, and he can't, because we're trying to catch him to get him better, because once he sits on those eggs and pollutes those eggs are done, and we managed to catch the duck, but we followed the proper procedures. We contacted the Game and Fish Commission, we told them we had it, and then gave our location where we were. We called Hawk, and they were sending somebody out to rescue to take the duck from us, to take it, to get it in its proper care. And we were told that if you do come across one and you take it in your own hands to clean the duck, wash it with Dawn and give it Pepto-Bismol for the stomach, because it's getting the stuff inside the system and it's killing them, and so the Pepto-Bismol will at least ease the pain of the stomach. You don't want to see an animal suffer, if it dies, well then it dies,
Yeah. So have you heard Exxon release any information saying, don't fish because there is oil in the lake, anything about, not eating the fish if you do catch it? Has there any word been released even on the mainstream media?
On the news there has, but it's not your Game and Fish on the news being interviewed and saying, hey, look, okay? It's just a reporter saying we've gotten word from Game and Fish that everything's fine. If you go to the dam right now, there's probably 25 vehicles down there, and these guys are down there fishing. they're using their casting nets to catch the bait fish, which they're taking and selling. They're selling shad from Plum Creek and from the lake. They're catching the shad and they're taking it to like different lakes, like Ouachita, Lake DeGray, Lake Hamilton, and where the striper fishing is very popular. They're using the shad for the bait there. So you're taking contaminated bait out of our lake and our stream, and you're doing even worse than what Exxon is doing by spreading it. You're taking it to a whole other county, whole other city, a whole other lake, you know, and you're contaminating our lake and the fish you're catching with this bait. It's definitely at the dam. You know, we've seen signs of it. We've actually taken samples ourselves, and I've got a crew now, an independent crew, who is looking for a lab out of state that is not on Exxon's payroll, has nothing to do with this oil spill whatsoever, you know, and is not going to show favoritism to Exxon. You know, they're like us. They want to know what's in this stuff, you know. So finding a lab out of state, you know, has been a trouble, you know, because Exxon is our government. You know, the government works for Exxon. You know, Barack Obama is working for Exxon, whether he knows it or not. You know, when they can overpower the government with their money, you know, then yes, Exxon is our government. You know, and for them to sit back and fill us full of crap and lie to us about what's in this oil, what it can do to you, you know, what the long-term effects can be, you know, from exposure, they're not telling us. You know, so unfortunately, it's either just take their word for it and sit back and possibly die, you know, from cancer or from gastrointestinal, you know, issues, or you know, possibly poisoning of your bloodstream, you know, having sores bubble up on your skin from the fumes and the stuff, or from direct contact with the stuff. You know, if that's doing it to us, then what's it doing it to our fish? What's it doing to our ducks and our turtles? You know, the kids in school, bless their hearts, you know, they're right there. The school is not far at all. I would say probably 1.5 miles as a crow flies, you know, from the main spill.
And which level is that? Elementary or high school level?
You know, I don't have children in school here, so I'm not sure. I know it's an elementary school for sure, for a fact. But as far as junior high and high school, I'm sure there is one. We have a basketball team and a football team, and you know, we have a track and a football field. So, you know, I see teenagers running around with the Mayflower shirts on, you know, the Mayflower Eagles, and there's other little teams they've got. You know, like when I went to school at Bryant, we had the junior high with the Mustangs, high school was the Hornets. You know, so but I haven't been here long enough to really know. You know, my landlord's son is in high school, junior high school, and he drives to school and he plays basketball. You know, and what's to say he's not, you know, infected now, even though his parents may work in Little Rock, you know, and they're only getting a slight breeze of the stuff when they're driving home, you know, but their son's here, you know, so they're not being affected as much as we are, or as much as their son is. So if their son gets sick, they're not thinking of the oil spill, you know, because they're not getting sick, you know, they're not suffering and having the same symptoms as we are, you know. So it's kind of like, do you take Exxon's word for it and think you're going to be okay? No, don't do that. You'd be dumb to do that, because this morning when I called the claims office, you know, this guy supposedly does not work for Exxon, but he's in charge of helping people that are in Mayflower who are experiencing illnesses or experiencing problems breathing, or, you know, places on their skin where they have to touch the stuff and it's got a, you know, a red spot or a sore, you know, and they're wanting to get checked out. Well, the guy told me, I tell you what, if you'll go to this place, and it's called Prime Care, located in Conway, and it's like, I think it's 1014 Hawkrider Street in Conway. He said, you can go wherever you want to. He said, but I'm telling you, this place here, I know will take our check. Okay, it's $85 per person per visit. He said, I will write them a check. If you go up there and call, make an appointment, let me know when you can go, you know, and I'll drop a check off for both of y'all, you and your girlfriend. He said, we can file one claim because you live together, you know, but any prescription medications they may prescribe, I'm just dying to see what they're going to prescribe, what they're going to, you know, diagnose me with, especially her. She's got it worse from being right there at the heart of it every day, you know. I'm dying to see how sick she is, you know, so, and what they're going to prescribe to us, you know. So I'm curious, you know, because there are medications out there now that the government has made, you know, that some folks would call the colon. the thinning of the herd. The H1N1 virus, the swine flu is a man-made virus, and it killed off all those people, and it traveled so far up from the Mexican border, up into Texas and Arkansas and Missouri. Who do you trust? You see pills on TV every day that if you've got bipolar disorder, or if you've got ADHD, or if you've got heart complications, take this pill. It'll help you. But then a year later, the same pill, you see an infomercial, hey, if you or a loved one has experienced, all these symptoms, growing a third leg, I'm being exaggerated, I know, but the symptoms are that far-fetched. They're crazy. If you or a loved one has experienced this, then we're going to compensate you with, you're entitled to some kind of money settlement. Well, who wants that? When you've got a heart murmur now, you're on dialysis, or you can't breathe. You're on the vent. You're on oxygen, because of this. So the more they lie to us, the longer we're exposed to this, and long-term exposure cannot be good. And so what we're seeing is slowly but surely there are claims being filed because it's just now in the open. Now here's the number to call. And so people are calling for sure.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a little bit about these pipelines. From what we've been hearing, people did not even know this pipeline was in the ground. It's a 65-year-old pipe. It predates even the housing developments. It predates the Maumelle water supply. So
it also predates the lake. The lake was not here. Lake Maumelle, I haven't heard for sure if it goes under the water, through it, above it. I just know it's around it. Lake Conway, as far as I know, is the only watershed where this pipe runs under the lake. Okay? And when these builders built the subdivision behind Harps, they knew pipe was there, but the homeowners were not made aware. So now you got this ruptured pipe. It's all a big shock. Where did it come from? Why is this pipe under my driveway or under my house?
Or under our water supply.
Or water supply. And now it's under the lake. So the pipe ruptured in the subdivision, not under the lake. But what happens if it ruptures under the lake? It's a major spill. Spilling on land, and just following nature of gravity and flow into the drainage ditches and then out to where it's supposed to be emptied into the lake, that's bad enough. If it ruptures under the lake, this lake is done for. And I don't think that, I know they didn't anticipate this pipe to rupture, of course not, but when Exxon bought this pipe, I understand that it wasn't Exxon's pipe to begin with, but they bought the pipe. They took over the rights of this pipe, which makes you liable, okay? They know the pipe's old, okay? They know that when they reversed the flow of this pipe several years ago, that they were going to see the stress cracks. They were going to, any kind of damage to this pipe, whether it be in just nature, or just, or like building houses, on the top of this pipe. The pressure, the weight, plus the lake, the pressure of the water around the pipe, none of this was taken into consideration, I don't think, because if it was, these houses wouldn't be built there. These homeowners now that have spent $9,000 per acre, not to mention the price and the value of their home, they're worthless now, and they can't even get back to their house to get their personal belongings because Exxon, won't let them in. Now, it's not Exxon stopping us. Let's get this straight. Exxon can't stop me from anything. They don't have a badge and a gun. So you put our local law enforcement on your payroll. You pay them to sit there and guard this slick. Well, that means our local PD is protecting Exxon. Serve and protect, right? Yeah. What about us? You're here for us, not them. And I would want to be a cop in this town, because I live here, and I have these citizens that live here. They're concerned, they're scared, they're worried. You take someone like that, their actions are liable just to get away from them, and they're going to do what they have to do to make sure that they're taking, proper steps and precautions to protect themselves from this, because local law enforcement is sure not doing it. They're more out to get you for riding through one of their checkpoints, catching you with a warrant, than they are to say, hey, this is a dangerous area. You know, you breathing this, you know, you getting it on your skin or even on your tires and carrying it home is a hazard. Oh no, you're not hearing that. You know, and like you said earlier, Mayflower is where the Game and Fish Commission's training facility is at, and they do have hatcheries here. You know, where they raise the fish and stock this lake. You know, now granted, the hatcheries are far enough away from the spill that they're not going to get the oil, you know, in their hatcheries, but you got the contaminants in the air, you know, and they're churning the water, keeping the water pumped and filtrated with air, oxygen for the fish. So what's that doing to the oxygen supply in the water, even at the hatchery? You know, on a typical day, if you drive down 89 or even up the interstate, you can see the lake. The lake is 10 miles long. It stretches from Mayflower to Conway. You know, so there are several landings, there are several boat ramps, fishing spots, you know, bait stores that you can go to and visit along this lake. But usually you'll see a game warden. You know, I mean, I'll see them all day long. You know, and it's never the same one. You know, this is their office, where their headquarters are at. You know, and so instead of checking, you know, fishing license, making sure that the people in their boats have, you know, proper equipment as far as life vests and paddles, you know, no, I have not seen not one, you know, wildlife officer here checking anybody. You know,
Since the spill.
Yes, and you know, and like I said, typically, if you ride to the dam, you see 10 cars. One of those vehicles is a game warden. You know, he's going to check you for your fishing license. Okay, I've been on the dam at say 5:30 in the morning. Got there early one morning to fish, and had a game warden just walk up out of the woods and checked all 11 people that were there. You know, and now you drive down there, and all these little hot spots are full of people because they've not come on the air and said, hey, there's oil in the lake. You know, stay out of it. You know, this lake is a fishing lake. Okay, it's not one to swim in by any means. You know, so you would want to be in the water anyway. But with your hands being in the water, you're catching the fish that are in the water. You're exposed to it. You know, and they're not saying, hey, we're not sure what this stuff is, so stay out of it. You know, you don't see the cops at the dam saying, hey, whoa, let's stop, back up. You know, you don't want to fish here. You know, anywhere north of this spill should be fine. You know, because the water, the way the lake is drawn out, Plum Creek feeds into the lake in the northeast part of the lake, probably I want to say 5, maybe 6 miles from the actual spill. Okay, the spill is at the bottom side of the lake. Okay, almost to the very bottom cove. When they open the gates at the dam and rush that water out of the lake, because the lake it stays a certain level at all times, and all the floodwaters from up north run down Plum Creek and fill the lake. So they make sure that the lake never floods. So they always keep it at a certain level. And if you ask me, the lake looks sick at all times. You know, when there's floodwaters coming and it raises the water level, it looks healthy. It looks great. They can't leave it there, because if they do, when it rains up north and the floodwaters come down eventually and make it to this lake, you're going to flood the lake. You're going to flood our homes, our businesses. So they have to keep the water at a certain level. When they do that, that midstream from the creek was here before the lake was. Okay, when they flooded this lake, you've got, you know, this 15-foot deep trench that's probably 20 to 30 feet wide, you know, of raging water that's rushing through the lake going to the dam. Okay, so what does that do? That sucks all the water out of our coves into the middle of the lake and right down Plum Creek. You know, so yeah, you know, this is the roughest, fastest current in this lake. Those gates are open. It's at the bottom side of this lake where the dam is. That's where the spill's at. So it's bringing that oil, that sand oil, or tar sand out from that spill, where it's leaked over into the lake, and it's bringing it from that cove out to the middle of the lake at the bridge. Because there have been, you know, there's proof. There's a known fact. There is oil at the bridge. Okay. Well, now there's oil at the dam. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. I've got my own specimen. You know, I've taken several groups down. You know, as a citizen, I've standing up. You know, and I'm taking them down to let them see for themselves, get their own samples and see what I'm seeing. You know, you can tell them it's in the water. If they dip the water and go, well, I don't see it in the water. Well, it's tar sand. It's going to sink. Get your butt down there and wipe the bottom. You know, at the spillway, the dam, it's a concrete slab, you know, which is typically brown. You know, and whenever it gets wet, it's a dark brown. This is black. You know, it's very obvious just by looking at it what it is. But you can't judge it and say that's old. No, test it and see. So that's what they're doing. They're wiping this slab, you know, and they're seeing the oil, you know, and they're documenting it with cameras and showing themselves taking a sample, you know, and showing them walking it into a mason jar, you know, and writing on the lid where they got it from, what date, you know. So 3 days after the spill, if I'm getting this oil on my lure at the dam, okay, what does that mean? That means it's in the Arkansas River. You know, it's flown that far, that fast. You know, now, the tar sand's heavy, it's going to sink. Okay, not every chemical in that stuff's going to sink. Okay, you might see a sheen on top of the water. It looks like motor oil. No, that's not. They're cleaning that up, but that's not the entire cleanup. You know, underwater, what you can't see, kind of out of sight, out of mind in their eyes. You know, if you can't see it, it's not there. You know, so they're acting like it's no big deal. It's not harmful. You know, it's okay to be around it because they have yet to evacuate Mayflower. You know, now the homes they did were ruptured, yes. You know, but the restaurants, the stores where this stuff is running right behind. Why aren't they getting them out of there? You know, I mean, the subway's there. You know, the subway is, you know,
and they're serving food right next to it.
Not 10 to 20 feet. The actual spill, you know, it's draining, that drainage ditch running to the interstate, under the interstate to the pond, you know, and they didn't catch it in time. You know, they say it was 18 miles from where the actual rupture was. You know, the close-off valve. So when they closed it off, depending on when they got there to close it off, when they closed that valve off, we got 18 miles of tar sand out, you know, in our community now. You know, so when I say thousands of barrels, you better believe it's thousands of barrels, not gallons, barrels. You know, and from an aerial view, you can see it is a mess. I don't think half the residents here in Mayflower realize how bad. If they could see with what I've seen, my own two eyes, they can see it when they drive by. You know, but you can't get that close to it because our local cops are making sure of it. You know.
Did you know that there was a no-fly zone also enacted? I think they've lifted it since now, this interview, but they had Exxon officials did declare a no-fly zone, and it was very hard to get footage. So do you think it was to prevent that viewpoint?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, today we saw a copter fly over, but it's from the military base, which is just 5 miles down the highway. You know, and I know that they're probably going to want to assist in the cleanup. You know, but just like us, Exxon's going to keep them out. You know, it might be a no-fly zone. Tell my military that. You know, tell them it's a no-fly zone and see how fast they fly over this place.
Yeah.
You know, in the past 11 days. It's like the third and fourth day after the spill, they made a no-fly zone because of all the choppers in the air, you know. And it wasn't just the news crew; these were personal aircraft. You can tell by looking at them. Some of them are really funky-looking little red choppers, you know. And there's some that have Channel 7, Channel 11, Channel 4, you know. And there's some that are yellow that are just all decked out that someone's private, you know, little aircraft, you know. So they're getting pictures. You know, their pictures are taken. They're done. They've already got them. You know, so fine. Make it a no-fly zone. You know, a little late now. You know, we've already got what we need. You know.
I want to ask you because today is Tuesday. Tomorrow we're expecting a pretty bad storm to roll through here. We were told by residents that live right on that southern tip of the lake in that cove that usually what's now blocked and looks like a land bridge is actually supposed to be connected to the rest of the lake, and that even when it's connected to the rest of the lake, they get about 120 feet of flooding into their yards. With that dammed up, what do you think is going to happen?
It's going to be more than just, you know, the several feet of in their yard, because when that little pond, when it all the drainage ditches from Mayflower, that's how the oil got into the pond to begin with, okay? It all followed, their the drainage system they built, for the overflow when it rains, it runs down their street to the ditches, to the culverts and into that pond. But when that pond overflows, it's rushing water, rushing water into the lake. If you dam that up, it's going to be as high as the street. You could possibly top and clear the street and get into the lake anyway. It's already there. We don't make it worse, So the residents that live on that pond, whose property is back up to that pond, it might rise 10, 20 feet, but with it being dammed off like that, God knows, and it's got to go somewhere. That pond is not just a deep hole that holds water, it's going to breach. And when it does, you've got little streams and little creeks that you won't see walking into the woods. Okay, when it rains and it floods, these creeks are now, visible. You can see them, and you can see the smut running through them, So that pond on the back side of it, okay, or the southern tip of that pond, excuse me, the northern tip is where it flows under 89 into the lake. The southern tip, it's all woods, marshland from there to Bell Slough, which is Plum Creek. Okay, that section of from the dam, probably to where we're at now, is the southern tip of Bell Slough. And what that is a wildlife management area. It's made for the duck hunters. They will flood this occasionally, in duck season for the duck hunters. You can deer hunt out. It's a wildlife management area. It's open to the public.
It's 2,000 acres. I read on the plaque, and there's over 100 species of wildlife that live here. So it's a beautiful place to witness nature too, and not just for the hunting, aficionados, but also just regular people passing through, tourists and local community who can come here and see all the beautiful biodiversity. So it's impacting that for sure, and we will definitely be out there covering the flood because we anticipate that possibly happening. It really sounds like Exxon has backed themselves into a corner. It doesn't. If they open up that land bridge and they let all that out, that lake that we discovered, which is still full of tar sands oil, will spill. If they don't open it up, everything that's sitting there right now will just flood the neighboring area. So this is a terrible situation we are in.
And you're not talking about just the fish, the turtles, the ducks, the wildlife. You're talking about the plant life, all the trees, all the lily pads that are in the pond, that the frogs depend on, and the bass depend on for cover, it's going to affect everything that you see with your own two eyes is affected. The air around it, the water, the mud below the water on the bottom, of any plant life growing on the bottom of the lake, any plant life around it that's being, especially when it floods, let's just say the tree in my backyard is not contaminated at all. 20 feet away, it is, Now those roots of that tree are going to branch out, okay? But you can't see it, so kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? When that little pond floods and it's touching the base of your tree, well, there you go.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a lot bigger than what they're letting on, And we know that because we're seeing it for ourselves. We're not going off what the news crew is saying or what Exxon is saying. We're getting our feet dirty. We're trampling over this stuff too, and we're putting our health at risk to find out. Like I told you guys earlier, if it takes me getting sick from this stuff, from being exposed, and me out tromping off of this stuff, and my waders, and being exposed to this stuff and getting myself sick and dying to save my neighbor, I'm going to, because I'm one person. But one person, just like you guys, will make a difference, and it's you guys standing up for what you believe in and know what's right, that other officials that are making 6 figures, 7 figures, could care less. They're sitting in the Bahamas right now with an umbrella drink, sitting on the beach, saying, I hope that oil spill gets cleaned up pretty quick. I got paperwork to do, bull crap. You're not here, feeling how I'm feeling, not just my heart, going out to everybody that's here in Mayflower, but the illness, something's wrong, and only you know when you're sick. You know when something's wrong. If you're catching the flu, you know it. You feel it. You feel it coming, and you try to prepare yourself for it, but how do I prepare? What am I preparing for? I mean, what's this going to do to me? I mean, is it going to cause cancer? If I cause cancer, it should be from me smoking cigarettes, not from this. It should be, from me doing it to myself, and it's my fault. Okay, I don't want to die because Exxon are a bunch of liars, and they're doing this to cover their butt, and they're doing it right in front of our face, I mean, it's like come knocking on my door and slap me in the face, I'm gonna fight you back, I promise you, and they're gonna see it, and I think that every resident in Mayflower needs to stand up, but Exxon, local law enforcement, the county sheriff's department, state police, highway patrol, they've got everybody scared, to stand up and say something. I'm not scared. You want some of me? You know where I live. Come knock on my door, but this is my home. I'm going to protect my home, and if it means, like I said, me getting sick to go out and prove to everybody else, yeah, it's right here in the creek behind me, and 3 or 4 miles from here is where the Arkansas River is at, it's feeding to the river. So if I've got to jump out there in this stuff to get samples off the bottom to show them, here it is. Y'all were late. You didn't stop this. You stopped the leak. You didn't stop the spread.
So I want to finish up because you've been great and I appreciate you talking. And this is an emotional topic as well. It's not just about, property value and being able to fish or catch ducks, but this is pulling on our heartstrings as a community, and you're willing to put yourself out there to help your community. And one of the things that the tar sands pipeline resistance, this group, all these different types of groups, the tar sands blockade, the Great Plains tar sands resistance, these groups are trying to put their bodies on the line to stop the building of the Keystone XL pipeline, a pipeline that would carry the same tar sands oil from Canada to the Gulf. And right now, we are waiting for Obama's decision by hopefully July to decide the fate of this pipeline. And there's already a lot of talk about whether the Keystone XL pipeline is even worth building, considering what's happened here, and investors are getting a little nervous. Do you think there's any safe way to have these pipelines?
Yes and no. And I say that because there are ways to transport this oil through a pipeline. There are other materials that are safe enough to withstand these chemicals and not have to worry about the chemical eating through the pipe or turning the pressure up because you want to make an extra buck, to send more gallons through the pipe, and take a chance of there being stress fractures and the pipe rupturing and there's got to be other ways, to transport this oil. And, if not by pipe, you can't do it by vehicle, because what happens if, say, I fall asleep at the wheel and hit the big rig that's carrying it, now you got an oil spill on the highway, so.
Just in the last 2 weeks or so, really now we're getting on the past month, but in the 2 weeks that we have been here covering, there has been a huge escalation of spills. There was a spill of strange chemicals in Louisiana that Exxon is not identifying. And again, Exxon's had a bad week. There's also been some fracking gas explosions. There have been derailments of trains carrying the tar sands oil. And there was also a big oil spill in Houston. It seems that while there is a safe way, these companies will buy their way out of taking that safe way. And what the tar sands blockade believes is that there is no safe way because tar sands is just unsafe and it's not worth it. And they're advocating for that, but it is difficult because we have an industry of job makers that people depend on this oil. What can we do as communities that will probably be continuously impacted? This will not be the last spill, potentially the last rupture, even maybe just on the Pegasus pipeline alone, which is obviously under a lot of stress. What do you think? What could we offer to communities who have these pipelines in their backyards or that are concerned about having this pipeline potentially built in their backyard? What can we offer them?
Well, we have an arsenal in Pine Bluff, and that's where they pretty much get rid of all your nuclear waste. Like your nuclear bombs. That are out of date. They can dispose of all these hazardous chemicals. Like the chemicals that Saddam Hussein was using, the mustard gas, things of that nature. They actually get rid of that stuff there at the facility, and they have what's called C-STEP. It's chemical stockpile emergency preparedness program. And what they did was all the residents around that particular area, they gave radios, the little AM FM radios, so if there's ever an announcement of a chemical leak or a spill, and it put the community in danger, they had routes set up, and as long as this pipeline is going to be here, we need to know what this stuff is, what it will do to you if you breathe the chemicals or even get it on your clothes or your hands or on your skin, and then have like an emergency crew that's set up and prepared and ready to take us in, to get us the proper care we need, but also to have emergency routes to get out of town, how to shut our houses up and our stores up, so when we do have to leave, we don't have to worry about the stuff inside being contaminated, So there's a lot of ways they could go around doing this to prepare us, for another incident like this, because we're not prepared by any means. We could be, boiling on the inside right now and not even know it, So, just sitting here, but if we knew the truth and not just have some moron lie to us to save his job, or to keep from like havoc breaking out in a town like this, where people are grabbing things and running out of town. You don't want, people raiding stores and just running in and doing a snatch and grab, because, that's not Mayflower. That's not what we didn't ask for this. 12 days ago I was fishing. I was eating the fish that I caught. Not anymore.
You obviously love this community. You chose to move back here to be near the lake. How do you feel about being here now?
I don't want to be here. I'm scared to be here. But Exxon is not offering me a hotel room. They're offering the people who lived in that neighborhood right there where the actual break happened. They're putting them up in hotels. Like I said, this lady earlier, she couldn't get to her house to get her children's clothes. So what they do, they said, here's money. Go buy new clothes. What about me? I'm here in town. I can get to my clothes. Don't get me wrong. I don't need clothes. But, my clothes are contaminated now. If it's in the air, I'm right there at the spill. We all have been, And some of us, we can come and go. We can kind of get out of it and back into it, but you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. You can't not go get gas. You can't not go get groceries because of the spill. You have to. So, I love this town. This is, after my divorce, this is where I came from last week. And I have memories of my grandfather when I was a kid bringing me here to fish in this lake, and I see this lake. And I see this cove where I live, where we actually fished when I was a kid there at the bridge and at the dam. And I don't see my grandfather anymore. I see oil. I see Exxon officials hiding behind trees, getting pictures of people trying to save a duck. I was one of them, and I see a lot of residents who are left in the dark, that are, I don't see my neighbor anymore. I see my neighbor covered in oil, even though he's not black from the tar and the oil, but that's what I see when I look at him, and this place will never be the same. And, to know that I moved here, I uprooted everything that I had left from my divorce, which is not much. I brought it all with me. I planted my roots here, and for a long time, this place will never be home. It will never be Lake Conway. It will never be crappie fishing. And I hate that. I hate Exxon for that. Now, I'm not saying it's their fault that the pipe ruptured, but it's on their property, it's on their watch. You know, they're not being smart about it. What could they have done to prevent this? You know, whatever it is, they didn't do it. You know, because now, you know, I'm moving. You know, and I'll look at the lake and it's my peace. It's my home. And, you know, all of my friends here, you know, I have friends that have businesses on the lake, on this cove we're talking about. You know, they depend on that income. You know, every bit of the revenue is from this lake. You know, it's the boat rentals, it's the boat motor repairs, it's the, you know, the launch fees for launching your boat. It's like $2 to launch a boat, you know, but that adds up, you know. And I have a friend that his father started a business here on the lake, you know, and bless his heart, the poor guy has got a heart the size of the lake, you know, and his business is kind of run down, you know, because it was his childhood, so he grew up, you know, and in order to fix the place up and to make changes, it's not what he remembers as a child, you know, and he wants to leave the place the way his dad left it, you know, and his dad would roll over in his grave right now. His dad would kick somebody's behind, I promise you. His daddy would be the mouth, you know, his daddy would be the voice that stood up for this community, and his dad's not here. And as a business owner here on the lake, he's scared to come forward because, you know, what's that going to do to him in his business if he steps up, you know? So I'm stepping up. I'm not going to say his name, I'm not going to mention his business, but I'm stepping up, you know, and I'm going to fight. You know, I have friends in low places, I have friends in high places, and if they can't help, somebody will. They know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, you know, and if you don't open your mouth and let your voice be heard or your presence be known, you're doing no good. If you sit back and let it happen, you know, and believe the lies that are being told to you, then yeah, you're going to get what everybody else is getting, you know, which is sick, being lied to, you know, and you're going to ruin the business here in Mayflower. You know, Mayflower is just now starting to grow. You know, Sonic, you know, we are somebody. And, you know, and Sonic is probably one of the only restaurants that didn't get affected on the inside as far as having a track inside. Now, the vehicles in the parking lot driving there, you know, and then you got the car hops walking out there. Now they're tracking, you know, and it's not fair, you know, because the people that own Sonic here in Mayflower, man, they're great people, you know. And the ones that own the Mexican restaurant, man, you couldn't ask for better people. Yeah, they're Mexican, you know, and their English isn't so great, but you know what? They have a heart. And they don't speak English. So how are you going to explain, you know, a minor problem in the restaurant and have a problem communicating with him versus an oil spill? You know, I mean, yeah, they're smart enough to look at it and say, wow, this is bad, you know, but they don't go home and watch the news like we do and understand it completely like we do, you know. And so he relies on his daughter, who's a high school student, to translate all this, you know. And if she doesn't understand, he doesn't understand, you know. So there's a lot that the community is not being made aware of, you know, and it's not getting out there. So